back to the Witchy Web Weave. I'm Alara,
I'm Alex.
and we're continuing our Tarot Tuesday series today with the Emperor. So, I actually really enjoy the Emperor card. At first, I really didn't know kind of what to make of him because he is supposed to be the obverse, the other side of the Empress. He's supposed to be her balancing half. Which kind of makes sense. I mean, the Emperor and the Empress, they're supposed to make a duo. When we're looking at the Emperor, we're going to go ahead and put the image up in between us here so that you can kind of look at it as we talk about it. We're going to go through the same as we do the other ones, where we'll look at the symbolism of the card, and then we'll go through some pros and cons, and then we'll talk about like examples. So when you're looking at the Emperor card, what you normally see is this very stern man sitting on a throne that normally in the background there's a lot of red coloring going on, either in the background, in the clothes that he's wearing, and a lot of times in the background you'll see mountains behind him, like he's sitting out over his kingdom, which actually that is the big thing with the Emperor. He is the great ruler, but he's also supposed to be a representation of the great father figure. He is the great father of the tarot. So it stands to reason that a lot of his symbolism is going to tie in a lot to all of that, with the idea of him being a great leader, a great ruler. You know, he's all about power and authority and reason and logic. That's why he is sitting on a throne. That is the literal representation of his authority. In his hands, he holds the symbols of his position, much like when you see the coronation of like the British monarchs, they hold the staff and the globe. I want to say they're called like the Crux Ansata, which is the cross of life, and then the globe of dominion. So he literally has dominion over his kingdom, over his domain. The entire realm of tarot falls under his domain. That is why he is the great father. He is the great ruler. I particularly, with the Emperor card, one of the things that I like most when I look at the imagery that you see a lot with the Emperor, one of my favorite parts is the red mountains in the background, because that to me is very symbolic of one of the big things about the Emperor's nature. He is steadfast. He is grounded and strong. He is rooted into the earth, and he rises up over, with experience. Like, he is very much the energy of a mountain. Which kind of reminds me of, if y'all ever watched the Disney movie Mulan, the Emperor. There's that one moment he's like, no matter how much the wind howls, the mountain cannot bow to it. He has very much that kind of same very regal authority, that very regal air, but at the same time he is weighed down by all of his experience and all of his wisdom. It weighs heavy on him. So that when you're looking at the imagery of the Emperor card, oftentimes you will see this very stern man with this very long white beard, showing his wisdom, showing his experience. He has lived through a lot in his life. He's gone through a lot to rule. He is normally garbed in a red cloak, symbolizing power and that potential. But when you look at what he is wearing underneath the cloak, he is wearing armor. So a lot of times when you see the Emperor, there is this image of a man that has complete control over his kingdom. He is a ruler. He has a very calm face. He looks very peaceful. He looks very stoic. But underneath all of that, he is still wearing the armor of a warrior. He is peace, but at the same time, he has that very real ability for aggression, for war, to back what needs to be backed in order to remain steadfast. He's not just all talk. He is able to back it up, which makes him a very imposing figure. He's very stern. One of the other big symbolism when you're looking at the Emperor card is oftentimes, almost almost always, no matter what version of the emperor you have, if it's some play off the Rider-Waite, there's going to be some form of symbol of Mars, symbol of Aries, or ram's horns in the symbology. Most particularly in the Rider-Waite version of the emperor, his throne has ram's heads carved into it, which, like I just mentioned, it is a symbol for Aries. He is ruled by Mars. He is ruled by the god of war. But at the same time, he is also beholden and very he is a very good example of the characteristics of an Aries, of that born leadership, that fire, that molten energy, like that ability to blaze through things to make his will happen. So one of the key things when I think about the emperor in general are some of the things that I've already mentioned. You know, he is the great ruler. He is the great leader, the great father. He is very much he's the representation of the rule over the realm of man. And when I say man, I mean mankind, humanity as a whole. He is a figure. Remember going back, I was talking about the magician and the high priestess, how they were both manifestations of creation and intuition and things like that. The magician and the high priestess are also what I view to be a paired couple, not romantically, but in concepts. But they both rule over the idea of mankind as far as potential goes, like raw potential. So with the magician and the high priestess, you have legitimately the potential for creative thought and intuitive knowing, or intuitive thought. And then with the empress and the emperor, they're literally the representation of the idea of the manifestation of mankind. So the reality, the actual material representation. So very much the emperor, his key things are the ideas of your will or authority in your life. He is all about talking about order and reason, and one of his key things, whenever you're looking at the emperor, almost always one of his key things that he is trying to talk to you about is about order, or about reason, or about the idea of your responsibilities in life. That is one of his biggest things in life, is the idea of responsibility and boundaries and order to things. That's why oftentimes I view the emperor as being a very close connection to the idea of justice. They are both about order and reason. It's just one is kind of about the natural order of things, and one is more about the law and overall morality and the idea of what is good and what is bad. So I view them very in kind of in the same realm, but in kind of different. They're different facets of the same concept, which we'll talk about more when we actually get to the Justice card. So when we're looking at pulling this card and trying to interpret it, when we're trying to look at more pros of the card or more positive interpretations of what the emperor could try to be telling you when you draw it, some of these things are simply just either your desire or your need to leave your own mark on the world, to make your own stand, or to create your own boundaries or rules for your life. Or he can be talking about your own ambition, or the ambition of others in the realm of your question of your life. Like I had mentioned before, oftentimes if you pull the emperor, it is relating to the idea of great responsibilities, or even that it's time for you to start looking at your own responsibilities, or looking at who in your life is dependent on you or beholden to you through home life or through work life. Oftentimes the Emperor can represent you in a place of leadership, or even your boss. And sometimes it will legitimately be talking about very strong, very authoritative parental figures, people who give you structure, or even a strong mentor in your life, someone that has helped mold you into the person that you are, is often kind of where the Emperor comes in. The Emperor can also be talking, he can come in whenever he's trying to urge you to create your own boundaries in life, or to create your own rules, or to try to caution you if your boundaries are weakening, or if you are letting people kind of walk all over you. A lot of times, the big thing if you draw the Emperor, along with all these other things I've mentioned, is he's normally urging you to follow your own inner principles, your own inner sense of what is right for you, and sometimes he comes in trying to tell you it's a matter of doing what needs to, I'm trying to think of how to explain this, doing for you what needs to be done rather than what you want to be done. So when we're looking at some of the more negative things with this card, some of the things that a reverse of the Emperor, or even just trying to interpret the negative readings of the Emperor, can be referring to things like feeling oppressed or being oppressive of someone else. He can also come in when in regards to matters of someone who is quick to anger or aggression. I have seen him come up in relation to people that are either in situations, or people who are abusive, or are abusive to their children or to their partner, things like that. The reverse, or the negative of the Emperor, can also be talking about just feeling weak, or having a lack of authority, or a feeling of lacking authority or ruling over your own life and your own choices and decisions. Like when you feel like someone is preventing you from making choices in life that are good for you. Things like that. And also with reading the negative in the Emperor, or him coming up reverse, sometimes that can refer to literally shirking your duties, rather than taking up the mantle of responsibility that you need to in life, or just not having any boundaries when you need to. So, with all of that in mind, I really, really love the Emperor card, even though I know that this sometimes is a hard card for other people. Kind of like how I talked about in the Empress video, how I have a hard time with the Empress sometimes, just because of what she can represent and what has been traditionally represented to her. Because as the obverse of the Empress, the Emperor is all about the idea of active male energy, or active masculine energy, and that can come in good or bad. And a lot of times, if someone has issues with the Emperor as an archetype, it normally has something to do with that aspect of the Emperor, or they find the Emperor to be too stiff, or too overbearing, or suffocatingly authoritarian, things like that. And I understand all of that, because I do see that as a potential of the Emperor, because that can happen sometimes with this kind of energy. But I've also been really lucky that I kind of understand the other side of the Emperor and his energy, that can be a very nurturing leader, a very caring, compassionate. He may be stern or stone-faced, but that doesn't mean that he's absent of caring. And so one of my favorite examples of a Emperor-like figure is from Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm showing my nerdiness. This is one of my favorite adaptations or versions within the Star Trek universe. It is my favorite show out of them all. And therefore, for me, the person to me who is the most beautiful example of what the Emperor can be is the Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Because he embodies everything that I kind of imagine when I think of the Emperor and his energy. He is a very compassionate man. He has this air that he was born for leadership, that he was raised and cultivated for leadership. And he rules he is stern, he is strict, he is all about rules and order. And that's why a lot of times he is the primary upkeeper of the idea of the prime directive, that there are reasons for why we do things, and so we have to follow them, because without order, everything would fall apart. And that's very much how the Emperor is, and that's very much the spirit of the Emperor. But at the same time, Jean-Luc Picard, as my idea of the Emperor, he also knows when there is a time to bend, when there is a time to look at everything, look at all the different options and all the facts, and then make your choice and make your decision and stand by it. He is a very peaceful man. He is often one that he does not attack, or he does not order them to fire or become aggressive unless they are first attacked. Normally it's only in defense of themselves. And all of these, same thing with the Emperor. There is that idea of, I will maintain peace as long as it is good for me and my people, but as soon as I am threatened, I will not hesitate to pick up the mantle and protect me and my own. So all of these different things, when you look at this particular character, I think he's a very good example of the best of the Emperor's energy. And then also, I've got one other example, but I'm probably not going to go into him just as much as the other one. Growing up, or if y'all had kids that were probably about my age, there was a TV show that I watched when I was younger called Recess.
Yeah.
And within this TV show, there was a particular character who literally, he was king of the playground. Like, he even had like a helmet that was supposed to be his crown. He sat on a throne, had a scepter, and he was in charge of maintaining order on the playground because he was the oldest kid and he had the most responsibility. And there was one particular episode that I remember kind of vaguely, where he had to go away, or he had to step down temporarily to take care of something, and he wasn't able to be there in the capacity of king of the playground. And so he gave authority to another child to carry on his responsibilities in his absence until he was able to return. And the whole episode ended up going very quickly, where the power quickly went to this kid's head. Mm-hmm. And it was a very good representation of what happens to the Emperor energy if it is not maintained properly, or if it's not held with proper respect and understanding for those that are under you, or those that this power affects. Because the Emperor energy can, if not handled well, can easily become very authoritative and very, it can become quite damaging. So I thought that was a really good example of kind of what can happen if something like the Emperor energy is not handled well and respectfully and with great, I want to say honor, because that's kind of how I see the Emperor. I see him as a very honorable figure. He is very reverence for his position and for the power that he holds. He understands very well that it's not about him. It is about those whom he has to care for, whom he has to be over. Because it is the mark of a kingsman is made and determined based on that. The mark of a, yeah. I think y'all know what I'm trying to say. I'm just going to stop trying, and I'm just going to go ahead, and we're just going to stop it there, because I think that I've kind of made my points on the Emperor card.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of y'all can kind of see why I like this card so much.
Bless
But,
you.
sorry, please excuse Al. He is sneezy today.
Yeah, I noticed.
Allergies. But I hope that y'all learned something. I hope that you got at least one thing that you could take away from this to kind of help you get in touch with, or at least understand better the energy of the Emperor. Because I do really admire this card and the energy that it can represent. So hopefully you'll stick around and see me in 2 weeks for the next Tarot Tuesday, where we'll be talking about the Hierophant, which I think will be a very interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, many blessings. Bye.
Toodaloo.